A very good evening to one and all here. It's wonderful to see the number of people joining us today. This is Edwin for you from Asia Pacific University, lecturer from the School of Media Arts and Design. Last week was a wonderful experience with you all. We really got a wonderful response from all of you in terms of the feedback that we have got for the webinar session that we last conducted. Thank you, one and all, for that in the first moment. We are really motivated in terms of conducting this series of webinar session. We at Asia Pacific University, as well as along with our partner KCLAS, for this particular webinar session, Kumaraguru College of Liberal Arts and Science, take immense pleasure again to welcome you all for this webinar session on storytelling through photography. So that's going to be the session for the day, and a wonderful response for this as well. We've got around more than 400 registrations, and I can slowly see in that there are a number of live viewers joining us here. So let's wait for a while so that we can get in more audience before we start this session. And before we actually go into this session, I'd like to remind you a few things when you are on live. Please do share your name and your university name details on the live chat session so that we can get in touch with you for further webinar sessions, as well as for your e-certification claim. We would definitely have a question answer session toward the end of the session, so you can post your questions in the live chat as well. We would take as best answer all the questions that we get through this live chat. In terms of time limitation, let's see how much more we can answer for you. We'll be glad to answer for you. On that note, before we actually go into the session, I'd like to introduce you to our guest and speaker for the day, resource person for the day, Mr. Nithil Dennis. Mr. Nithil Dennis is here with us today. I mean, I'm really acting it out because I'm calling him very, very formal today. To be honest, we are undergraduates, classmates, and we have known each other for quite a long time. So we are best friends. So thank you, Mr. Nithil Dennis, for being with us today. So on that note, I'd like to give you a few words of introduction about Nithil. Nithil, as I told you, we are both from the same university, same college, Loyola College. So Nithil Dennis completed his degree in visual communication before he moved on into post-graduation to complete his graduation in Anna University in the discipline of electronic media. And his specialization was in film and television production. Whereas in Loyola, he was more into photography. His specialization was into photography. Mr. Nithil also has a diploma in printing technology, and he is a UGC NET qualified academician with 10 years of teaching experience in various leading education institutions, where he has held important positions and responsibilities. He has a very good industrial experience as well. He has worked with leading photographers and filmmakers. The one I like to mention here is Mike Pandey, international award-winning environmentalist and wildlife photographer and filmmaker. So he was trained under Mr. Mike Pandey. Under his pocket, he has also directed 2 documentary films. I know Nithil has been very, very socially responsible citizen. So he was always inclined to do social documentaries. And there you go, he had done 2 wonderful documentaries, which had been included in international award-winning film festivals. He has been able to produce these films out of his own intent, passion, and of course, producing it from his own pocket. So kudos to Nithil on that. He had also worked with leading television channels. Worth mentioning is NDTV, a leading news channel in India. And also he had international experience working as a photo and video journalist in Argentina. He loves to travel, so that's what he's going to talk about, how he had been traveling and how he got inclined into photography. A strong sense of identifying photo stories is his strength. His research interests are storytelling through visuals and representation of ethnographic communities. He has special interest in visual anthropology and social documentary. He is currently pursuing his research in the field of visual communication. So that is, in short, about Nithil that I can summarize with you. But I can assure you that we are in good hands today. There's going to be a lot of knowledge sharing. So over to you, Nithil, for the session. And again, thank you for being here with us today.
Thank you, Edwin. It was a long introduction. You had really given so much of importance to me. I'm really nervous here. But good afternoon, all of you. I see a lot of people out here. And thank you, APU and Kumaraguru College. And particularly, I'm very nervous because three of my classmates are online. One is Edwin, another is Leo, and another one I just saw, it's Erwin Mary, and I don't know how many more are there. But I'm really nervous because of them, because they're going to really drill me with questions after 20 years of knowing them. But then, jokes apart, I would like to get into the presentation right away, because there's not much time, and I would try and limit my presentation to 1 hour. If it exceeds, I'm really sorry. So I'm going to share my screen right now with my. Yeah. I hope all of you can see it, and I'll go into the slide mode. Yeah. So before I go into the presentation, I would like to tell that this presentation is about storytelling through photography. But why storytelling through photography, and how to take better travel photos? I mean, we all know that travel photography is something which is very common now, because most of us have good cameras, at least in your mobile phones, and we all love to travel. But at the end of the day, sometimes it so happens that we end up not being satisfied with our pictures. That's point number one. But point number two is that this presentation is going to be for serious photographers, serious travel photographers who would love to travel and tell stories from wherever they go. I mean, like to whichever place they go. So to kind of give you a disclaimer, this is not for time pass travel photographers. So I see a lot of them who go, they click beautiful pictures, and then at the end of the day, it's just a beautiful picture. There's nothing beyond that. So it's not for time pass travel photographers. It is not a technical presentation, so I'm not going to get into shutter speed, ISO, aperture, whatever it is, lenses, all of that. I'm hoping that most of you will have a basic idea about all of these technical presentations, because most of the photographers who come for presentations, they always go a little technical and miss out on the most important part, the content, the story. And this presentation is made presuming, as I told you, all of you have basic knowledge of the technical aspects of photography. Now, another big disclaimer here is that if you think that this presentation is going to be a travel photography presentation, yes, the title says so, but it can border between street photography, social documentary, and travel. So it's a combination of all of these three, which I have tried to, put together in this presentation, especially because this is going to the academic circles, especially to students. So it's not just the glamorous travel photography that you will be basically seeing. Going to objectives and the learning outcomes of this presentation, I would like to say that this will probably help you to learn how to research, find stories, and able to tell them in pictures. It will also develop your understanding of how to give a sense of a place to your location or that space that we call it. And also develop your understanding of the rules of composition. That's a little technical, but I will just talk about it a little bit so that you know when to break the rule and still get a fabulous shot. So it's not always about rules, photography. It will also you'll also be learning the creative use of light. Sorry for the grammar mistake there. And composition and perspective. You will understand the nitty-gritty of interacting with people during shooting. Very, very important people skills, and how to become a responsible travel photography blogger. Now, that's very, very important for me. Photography is not about just being technical, taking your camera, going there and shooting. It's about how ethically you behave while you're shooting. So let's and another main thing is my pictures will also be relating to what I speak. There will be a story related to the picture. So like that, look at this, it's a plain slate. So I just wanted to tell that when you are going to be a participant here, start with a clean slate. Be very, very passionate. Okay, and just go outright and asking me questions in whatever way you want to. And I know most of the students have a different kind of sleep cycle nowadays. They're all awake in the night and they wake up in the morning. Sleep in the mornings. So if you're one of them, so please wake up and open your mind as refugees in their own land. So as Edwin told, I work with ethnographic communities. I photograph communities which have not been represented in the mainstream media, and I love to explore their lifestyle. So this is a particular community. They are called as Van Gujars. They live in the high lands of Himachal Pradesh, and the speciality of these tribals are that they are Muslims, basically origins from the from Pakistan and Afghanistan, but they have crossed the border after 1947. They settled here. A few of them are there, so half of them are there, but they are vegetarian and they live out of their livestock and they produce. So what happens is that in winters, it's too cold in the highlands, so they have to come to the lowlands. And in the summers, they go to the highlands. Now, I call it highland and lowland, but it's not easy. Moving from lowland to the highland is a big journey. It's a 2.5 month arduous journey that they take. So while I was in Himachal, this was during the winter time, and they had come down, but most of them have not come down because it wasn't fully winter, so they were still stuck up. And most of the time, the entire family travels and takes this journey, but this is the location that they actually settle down, but not exactly in this town, a little above this town. So they are basically refugees in their own land, basically because this journey also cut across this border of countries. Sometimes they cross over to Pakistan as well. So there are so many challenges that they face. But while I do travel, I also try to find out if I can find some unique communities. So this is one of the examples. I was in Saho. This is a place called Saho in Chamba district. And then I was just traveling, I was just walking, and I found this unique house. And this is the trigger for my story. When I saw this house, it was quite different from the houses that you see in this picture. So I was curious. And as a photographer, curiosity is very, very important. You need to be really curious and observe things which are very different. So when I saw this house, I found that there's something really different here. So later on, I kind of met these people who live in these houses. And this particular picture, if you look at the composition, it uses a specific technique called as size constant, where the nearer objects are big and the farther object is smaller. So there is a certain hierarchy that I have used to explain how these people social structure is, or their family structure is. Now, how do I come to know about a family structure while I travel? I speak, I interact, I talk to them. I found out that it's actually a patriarchal society, like most of the communities in India. And some of the tribal communities in India are matrilineal and matriarchal, but here they are actually patriarchal. The man is the boss. So while I was actually standing there, the scene just came in front of me. The man of the house was closer to me, the son was in the middle, and the mother at the back. And then you have the contextualizing of this whole image in that scene, which is the house, the mud house, and the wooden blow. So when you also take photographs, you need to contextualize and put it in that particular frame. So here you have the environment, you have the lady, you have the son, and you have the father. All of them kept in a certain hierarchical order, which is basically the composition rule, which I have used size constant here. So this was the first introduction. This is how the family lives, and this is how. And also there is, I kind of give you I try to create kind of mystery with my pictures. Here you see the man's shoe is on the right side and the woman's shoe is on the left. So is there a difference? I mean, like, you can always come out with so many perceptions about this image. So look for such codes in society that you find which is interesting to probably portray in your photograph. Apart from that, I also look at their lifestyle. Where do they live and how do they live? So keenly observing, as a photographer, you should find out these small nitty-gritties, like the small pattern which has been drawn on the on the window. Above, I mean, it's just not a window; it's actually a small frame there. But then beautifully, they have made a small little design there. We all love to decorate our homes, but this is a very unique way of decorating their homes. So that caught my attention. So as a photographer, this is also very important. You need to find out what's unique about these communities and then try to portray it with your images. Now, looking at this image, these two women seem to be just sitting there. These images need a little bit of writing while you actually tell stories. The photograph just does not tell the story. Sometimes it so happens because these are the women of the community, and they are not just sitting, they are actually singing. So if I would have made a documentary film, yes, this would have played out as a song and you would have understood it clearly. But in photography, it doesn't work out because it's a normal pose, like normal humans sitting but not showing their face. Now here, a one-liner is required. So it's okay that you don't have to tell the story with your image, but also can include words along with it. So this is the way they traditionally sit and sing songs. Now I told you I go into the cultural aspect of every community. So I was listening to a song coming from some other house. Then I said, "What is this?" So the guy said, No, they are singing because they're just passing time because they're just bored. So I walked into that house and I found these two women. They were really shy, but then they said this is how they sit. So it's not actually shyness. This is the way they sit and actually sing, and I captured them. And another very important aspect is their lifestyle. As I told you, they travel 2.5 months uphill to reach the highlands during the summers to graze their cattle and their sheep. Once they are done, they come back again 2.5 months back to this land. But here today, you see a very distinct, image where there are only women and children. The reason being the men are out. They are out in the highlands. They have taken their cattle up there. So here, if you look at the image, it's very grainy. And I have also was not able to get the feet of the women correct because there was not much of space. But I tried to create an effect of a painting with my photography, which is also the technique used by Rembrandt, the very famous photographer who mastered the technique of shadows in his painting. So here I have blended the shadows and the highlights to just give you a certain painting effect, and the wall kind of complements it so well. Now the story is the women stay back, the men go. So the missing men, the women, and the children. So that's how I try to tell my stories. Children, while you travel, are very interesting. So this boy was one of the most curious kids. But while you're shooting kids, you should be very careful that you should not make them pose too much or try to influence their behavior. So while you're shooting, there are certain things you have to be very sharp. He was very curious, and I had shot it not from my level. The camera was in a little lower level than mine. He was curious what I was holding. He was just looking into the lens, and I just clicked it. So, and then later on, I started chatting with this boy. He was very, very enthusiastic. He started playing with me. He taught me some nice, local games that they used to play and all of that. But the next image shows a totally different, perspective. Now here, this is what is technical perspective. The high angle and the low angle, defines. The high angle always puts the subject a little, smaller, and they are like, kind of suppressed. But if you look at it, the same boy shot from a slightly low angle, gives you a certain kind of hope. But the main problem still stays. that their daily life, they struggle to travel, they struggle to go these many, months, travel these many months with their cattle, go there, stay in the highlands with no house, nothing. They, they send their sheep, and sometimes wild animals are there. So a lot of these issues. If you really want to know more about this particular community, you should read this book by Michael Beneloff called as Himalaya Bound. Beautiful storytelling with photographs. He's a photographer who traveled with these tribals along their journey and documented their entire journey. So more on with Michael Beneloff. You can just carry on. And my last image about this story is about what is their future. What does it say? So here I have used the rules of composition, the rule of thirds. The subject is right here. This man who is just not, you don't see his face, and that's the mystery surrounding this image. And he's traveling somewhere. So I've used the foreground, the subject, which is giving you the context of this whole story, which is the lifestyle and their livelihood, and then the human element, who is placed at the left, interest point in rule of thirds. To kind of close this, story, I would like to tell that these tribals still live in the same condition, but they are a very, very happy lot. So I love to tell positive stories, and I love to, create positive stories. Moving on to my second story, which is quite interesting and can be relatable to many people in Tamil Nadu who have visited Kerala, the neighboring state. And we all know that even today, Kerala has a communist party leadership. And most of the time, they have a communist leadership and political background. But if you look at it, communism again is connected with atheism, and they are mostly non-believers. And especially while I was traveling in Kerala, and I was in Ernakulam, and I was actually on the streets, the Jewish streets. There is a street where the Jews live, and these Jews came long back to Kerala, 500, 600 years back to Kerala to do, to market spices, to kind of, trade spices from here. And they are still there. So this is a unique community again who are still living. How is it possible for Jews to live in India? And they've lived for so many years. But this is an interesting, striking image, specifically because, though communism is connected to atheism, you still see the symbol of the trade union. This is CITU, which is, if the Malaysian students are not so familiar, you can Google and find out what the history of CITU is. It's about trade union and Communist Party's symbol here, but you also see the cross. That was very funny. And then the font was written in the shape of a ship. So this is a coastal town with a harbor there. So this kind of imagery really intrigues me as a traveler. This tells a lot about the painter who had probably painted it. I don't know what he had in his mind. But then normally CITU is written in normal font, but this was a very unique form. So observing all these small things while you travel is very important in photography storytelling. And to basically give you an insight into this whole Jewish town, as I told you here, the story is here. It clearly states 1760. So this is about an ancient civilization or ancient set of people who came to India during those days. So this clearly gives you the time period of this particular history. And then I go on to also give you the exact community who is living in that place. So you can see the board, which is like almost worn out, which says Jew Town. And then also, ironically, the town and the cemetery board is kept together. That's again very intriguing for me, so I just shot that. And as I told you, history, you should do your research. So before I went to this particular town, I also, practically because I've lived there as well for some time because of my uncle, I know the history of this small little village, Matanjeri. But if you're not familiar with that location, you should do your research. Now here in this picture, it's clearly about the research, because if you see these tiles, there are images of ships and a port, which kind of signifies the olden times and how these people had come. They came through this port city. And then the street, which is on the other half. So here, the composition rule that I have used is called as framing. So I have kept half the frame out of focus to kind of add a certain mystery, and the other half which has a piece of history in itself, right? So I knew it that the Jews came here to do business. They came through the port to trade spices. So when you have such images, you don't need to tell your audience much with words. A little bit of your words are just enough. The picture itself will tell the story. Now, moving on to more of Kerala, again, I like to use a lot of intriguing compositions which may not reveal too much. That's my style of photography. You can develop your own style of photography. In this, you see the most traditional art form of martial arts. Probably it can even be called as the mother of all martial arts, which is called Kalari. Now, in Kalari, again, if you are going, you know that today you are going to shoot Kalari, a traditional art form. You should not just go there and say, okay, I'll just go there and shoot. You should do your research and find out what is unique about Kalari. Kalari is completely, it's about discipline. Now, the first discipline in Kalari is the subjugation to the master. The master is supreme. So the students do not question him, they just learn. So it's a kind of old system. So for me, how do I represent that respect that they have for the master? So here I show the back and I show the feet, which looks a little old. So it shows a certain amount of experience that person has. And a young guy muscled up, but you can't see his face again, just bending to touch his feet. And this is again a practice in India, and it is used to respect older people. And the next one is, and then Kerala has always been battling with this modernity and traditional things. So there's always a contrast that I try to develop, show in my stories, is the conflict of the humans, shown with an art form. Here, Kalari, I have used Kalari as a kind of analogy to show how the people of Kerala are still struggling and fighting to, kind of battle out what is modernity and what is tradition. They go out to other countries, they live a lavish life, they have an amazing life. When they come back to their own country, to their own state, they are extremely traditional, conservative, and they follow everything traditional. So this is one of the examples. And I also, again, have used the element of mystery in this picture, where you don't see the second person, you only see one person. So this is a style that I have developed. And also Kerala is known for its Kathakali. Now, as I told you in the previous frames, you need to research. Here, research leads to getting storytelling images. Kathakali is an art form majorly performed even today by male dancers. They do not have female dancers. So how do they represent a female character? So the male himself becomes the female character. Now, this is again something which I know and I have researched and I've understood. But how do you represent it in an image, in one photograph, in one frame? If you look at it, the eyelashes of this man is sharp and the eyelashes are broad. That kind of defines the male and the female. But here, if you look at it, this is the male character. Yes, definitely. They also have a crown over this. But here, this is a female character. But ironically, if you look at the image, the face makeup is female, but the body is male. Now, this gives an insight into the art form itself and how it is being, followed for years on, before. And while I'm actually shooting, if you look at this image, many people, I always look for a moment to come. And Henry Cartier-Bresson, who is the world's most famous street photographer, calls it as the decisive moment. Now, in this image, many of you might think it is a flashlight I have used, like a studio flash to get the light on the face. But the real story is here. So I was with a group of students from the photography school, and there was a faculty who was trying to shoot through his Hasselblad camera, which is a film camera, analog format. And all the students were, curiously watching. Now, this scene did not happen like this. It was with proper light. The room had proper light, and the photographer was trying to photograph. But for me, that moment did not come. So I was waiting. I was like, this is not interesting. So while you travel, you should sometimes wait, probably anticipate something that can happen. You should have a certain kind of intuition in your head. So in this case, what happened, suddenly the electricity went off. All of them took out their mobile phones and started flashing the light, and that was the moment that I was waiting for. Probably it was not a moment I waited for. I was waiting for something to happen, and it happened right there. So I took a series of images right there too, and that action speaks a lot. So here you can see there's a group of people. They are all flashing lights, and this one person with this traditional clothes sitting there. All of this is called as action. So while you photograph, because photography is a still medium, there's no movement in it, but try to create a certain amount of movement also and action in your pictures, like what you see in this particular photograph. Now, to sum up the whole Kerala story, as I told you, as a society, they are struggling, but there's always this whole thing that is standing still. So how do you tell this? Now, this is a very, 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 very favorite photograph of mine. I usually title it as, The Postman Knocks. This is a very famous title by Ruskin Bond, a novelist. So while you're photographing, you also have to remember things that you have read, you have seen, you have observed, you have felt, you have also experienced. For me, the title of that book came into my mind while I saw this photograph. People of my age and probably the last generation who probably used the post box to send love letters will remember that this is the most important part of this post box. This is where the timing is written for delivery, or not delivery, for dispatch. So the person comes, takes the letters at that particular time in the morning, I think 12:30, in evening 4:30. So you miss out the timing, your letters will be one day late. So we have to be very clear about what time the postman will come to clear this box. But in this image, the post box is there, battered, old, the wall is also not painted, it's all very old, and there is no time. So for me, it's like a time in history that is frozen. This whole concept of posting letters have stopped. Today we are all on electronic media, and we just send emails if you have to, or WhatsApp messages or SMSs. This talks a lot about the yesteryears that we have gone through, how communication happened in those yesteryears. Now, moving on to the next part of my presentation, I would like to title the whole story or the whole series of these images as "Don't Cry for Me, Argentina." Now, as I told you, I kind of relate while I travel to poetry that I have read, a novel, a story that I've heard, a particular song that I have listened to, or a film that I have watched, or anything that kind of connects me to it. If you rightly remember, I mean, Edwin will also remember, Leo will also remember, in my visual communication course, in the final year, we had to do a film analysis, and I took a film called as Evita. And Evita is about, a very famous personality in Argentina, and that was played by Madonna, and it's a musical, and Madonna sang all the songs in that movie. Even Antonio Banderas is there, and this is a very famous song called "Don't Cry for Me, Argentina." This is the exact feeling. I mean, again, photography is about feeling. I always go to a place, I kind of get so involved in that place, I really feel bad when I leave. I was there for a month in 2014, and these are the set of images that I shot. And for me, that country kind of, gave me so many nostalgic feelings because I did a film analysis of it. I love Che Guevara, who was born in Argentina. I love Maradona, who again was born in Argentina and played for Argentina. I had watched the match in 1986, World Cup. So all of these kind of, connected. So of course, the one of the main reasons I went to that country is also the food, the street culture, the history. This is the palace called Rosa Casada where the president works, and the art that they have. Of course, their dance, which is tango, and again, it's history, and the tourists. And also, you can see Maradona, Evita, and Eva Peron and Peron. So these are political figures, and this is a sports person, and the countryside. So I've involved everything, and of course, Che Guevara, who this is a very famous photograph. All photographers should know, him, know this photograph, and it's the symbol of revolution, right? So to start with, while I was in Argentina, I was also a tourist. I went to so many touristy places. I clicked a lot of touristy images, but something was missing. But thankfully, I had a friend there who told that, Nithil, you would be interested to see this particular location, this particular place. So it's again important while you're a photographer to get some local contacts. Try getting local contacts, speak to them, ask them 1,000 questions, be as curious as possible, probe into their entire lifestyle, and thing, and make sure that you somehow land up in getting such unique stories. This is one of them. This is called Mansion de Obreros, the house of the laborers, or workers, basically in Spanish, if you have to roughly translate it. This is how it looks now. But it is actually dated again 1920. So in the 1920, I mean in the 20s, this place had almost like people from 100 plus countries. It was again a port. There were 2 meat factories and refrigerators. People worked round the clock, and this place was totally cosmopolitan. It had everything from casino to theater. But today, there's nothing. Why? Because in 1980, Argentina went through an economic recession, dictatorial rule, and these 2 factories closed. And the people who lived here one day just left. Now, another very unique feature of this particular story is that the people did not take anything that was in their houses. They just left. So even today, if you see through these window panes, you will see furniture inside and materials that are just kept inside. But nobody came back. Nobody knows where these people went. So in 2005, if I'm not wrong, this place was converted into a heritage center. Also because that the major revolution, labor revolution in Argentina started at this place. Those days, there were so many laborers who was working here. The president of the country was arrested, and 20,000 laborers marched from this place in 1947 to Buenos Aires, which is 70 kilometers from here, on horseback and also on foot, to protest against their leader. And that's the starting of the labor movement in Argentina. So that is why it's mentioned as Berisso. This is the place name. The street is called Calle de New York, which is Street of New York. Very interesting again. And it says Kilometer Zero, which means this is the starting point of Peronismo. Peronismo is the movement of the labor movement in Argentina. So these are all the historical facts that come along with your stories. But how do you represent in images is very important. So I went through a lot of material to study about this place before I even went to this place. And also, this is Perón, the president of the 1920s and 1930s of Argentina. His beautiful second wife, Evita, or partner they call her, she was again very active in politics, and she brought in a lot of reforms for the women of Argentina who were actually suppressed at that time. And she's lauded as a heroine, they worship these 2 people there. So these are the paintings on the walls. And again, in Argentina, you have the culture of wall painting and murals, basically they call it. So if you can try and capture what is unique about each place, that's again very, very important. Then a few observations like this, the numbers of the houses. You see those old battered windows just in different colors and shades, this left like that. The doors which are closed and locked. The cars just left. They are just lying there to rot. And again, if you look at it, those small alleys which are not occupied by anybody, and they're just there. And when I came, I found out this very interesting thing. Totally abandoned street, but then there was this one shop which I found which had all of this. I was like, wow, that's amazing. And then I saw people. I saw a shop, then I saw people. But the people are really shy and they're very wary of photographers. Now, while you are a photographer, if there are people who are not ready to pose for you, you should not force them. But I convinced this little girl, and I also call this photograph as the decisive moment. I'll tell you later why. I convinced this little girl in my tuta puta Spanish, whichever I've learned for 3 months while I went there. I spoke to her and she said, okay, I will pose for it. Now, there is this whole story of this, the shutter closed, and there's a certain amount of emptiness in this picture, which I like. But the problem is that there is no depth. Now, in photography, again, it's not always necessary that you should have foreground, middle ground, and background. or that perspective or the 3 dimension. If you can compose a picture and contrast the subject and the background like this with the contrast of shapes, here I've used shapes, squares, to basically create that separation. You can do a fantastic job. So this girl said okay, but when I clicked and I looked at my preview, the girl had put down her head, and I don't know where the dog came from. The dog is looking straight into the camera. So it's fluke, but I call it the decisive moment. The person I wanted to photograph did not look, but somebody else came and looked into the camera. Maybe that photograph could not have been so effective, but this definitely is for me. It's always not necessary that you should have a story. You can have candids. It's called the art of observation. How did this happen? This entire series that I'm going to show, every day I go to this park in the evening to spend some time, write something which I observe, or probably just sketch out something that I observe. And then I started noticing every day there used to be regular people who used to come to the same park, do same things, and sometimes even do different things. So those kind of stories are also stories while you travel. These are the people that I observed every day. So you can see the series. They come almost every day along with me. They sit there, do their own stuff. But this was completely shot candid. Please be careful. If they find out that you're photographing and they don't like it, you can even get your cameras broken. So yes, you can shoot them, but make sure you don't publish these images without their permission. That's again unethical. So these are a few observations. A guy who does mowing of the lawn, and then there's this girl who's reading a book, a man who is, I don't know, maybe he looks like a musician to me, writing notes, somebody just lying down and reading a book, and a couple in a romantic mood. So this also is it's basically based on observation and candidates. You can shoot with a long lens because the subject will not be disturbed. They will not understand, or you can take nice emotions, moods, and capture all of that. Now, while I was in Argentina, I also had the opportunity to capture very good events. So during the springtime, every weekend there used to be a cultural event of one particular neighboring country. One week it was Brazil, but I would like to show you the cultural event of Bolivia. Now, Bolivia again is very interestingly, the people look very Indian. They eat also like Indian. They eat a lot of rice with a lot of chicken curry on it, and they eat it with hand, very interestingly and surprisingly. So while I was there, I got an opportunity to shoot a colorful event. Now here, color is just riot. I mean, riot of colors you will see. Look at the brightness. Now in this picture, I've used the leading lines, to kind of culminate at this obelisk which is there. And this is the center point of Buenos Aires. And so you can kind of get a sense of the location where it is happening. So it's very important. Again, these leading lines lead towards this particular point. And this is called a single point perspective, very effectively shown in the painting of The Last Supper by Leonardo da Vinci, and very effectively used by Stanley Kubrick in all his films. So he's a master of single point perspective. So these are all things that come into my mind while I photograph. I love Stanley Kubrick. He's one of my favorite filmmakers. I love the single point perspective that he uses in his compositions. So I have applied all of this in this photography. Again, it's linear perspective, not single point. Of course, it's single point, but in linear pattern. Here, while you're shooting such events, this is a collaborative effort by two countries, that is Bolivia and Argentina. How do you represent in the image? The image here shows the two flags together, and then this whole street filled with musicians and dancers. And it's not always you should have a wider shot. You can also go closer and capture that one moment, or that of the person who is performing, like in the shot. And make sure that you don't cut off the main image, which is the horn that he's actually carrying. A riot of colors, as I told you. Expressions and moods captured. That's again very important in travel photography. And also some unusual shots. Here, these kids are dancing, people are shooting, and then there is this man just walking across. And I'll show it in the next picture as well, where these are just the moments that I've captured in the entire event here. If you look at it, this man again, his head is missing. This man's head is missing, but you only see the feet. which is completely odd. All of them are wearing colorful costumes, but these two are wearing normal trouser and pants, which is like, again, odd. So you can capture such odd moments, and make your picture interesting as well. Capturing a certain action, again using foregrounds to emphasize the subject. Here the color in the foreground creates a certain frame to the image. And of course, here, if you look at it, the guy is having the horn in a very awkward position, and he's completely oblivious of the fact that he's standing in such a crowded place and he's having his food. Maybe he was very tired. So capturing these moods, these emotions and expressions are very important. And again, as I said, I always have some intuition. And while I was just having my food, I saw this nice, round, very cute looking guy walking. And I kind of was anticipating that this will happen because I saw the banner on top and I knew how is he going to bring it. So he didn't see it. He was very fast. He was walking straight, and then bam, right there. So by the time I had taken my camera and I captured those two expressions, very interesting expressions, to give you the sense of action of what is happening in that entire festival. And also, again, use of rim light and backlight kind of creates beautiful images by separating the contours here, especially the contours on the headgear which the girls are actually wearing. And then food, of course, my love for food always. These are empanadas. It looks like samosas from India, but they are filled with meat and they're very yummy. And again, I have used the rim light to kind of create a sense of drama in the image. It's just a simple image, but with the lighting, how interestingly you can make a very simple, boring subject into an interesting subject. Here again, lighting, the rim light, the side lighting that's falling, and the smoke. Now these are things that come with practice. So while you travel, now start observing, start looking at how light is falling. Where is it falling? How is it creating a certain impact on your subject? All of these are very, very important in photography. Now, to almost go to the last section, just before the last section, I have one section on the country where I live now, which is Bhutan. I came to Bhutan last May as a tourist, and this is happiness personified. And this, again, while you travel, I did extensive research and reading about Bhutan. And whenever I go, all the reading that I take in kind of translates into images. A classic example is this image of the parliament. Basically, this is where the government functions in Bhutan. And if you had understood or read about Bhutan, you know that it's a constitutional monarchy. The king is supreme, the majesty is supreme, and then the elected government is there. You have a prime minister and a set of ministers. All of them work from this. So here you see a low-angle shot, kind of giving a supreme, perspective with the flag, which signifies which country this is. So, and you also know that Bhutan has something called as the happiness quotient. They don't have GDP. They have something called as gross happiness quotient, GHQ, they call it. So it's all about measuring the happiness of people. So the government and the majesty, the king, always make sure that the people are happy. Even though they are not, in like super happy mode, they are taken care of. That's one of the most important thing. Now, how do you represent it symbolically? Thankfully, my guide told that there is a ceremony where they bring down the flag every evening at 5 o'clock, which is called as the retreat ceremony. The unique feature of this is the military comes in, they bring down the flag, they take the flag, fold it, put it into this plate, and then bang happens the story. This is the storytelling picture of this series. Here, everything is all encompassing. You have the military, which talks about the imperial power, the majesty. You have a monk who is dressed in the religious, robe, which talks about the country's religious background. And this is one of the last, surviving Buddhist nations in the world. And the common man dressed in the common costume. So all three things, which is basically representing the people's government also. Now, all of this is how the whole picture encompasses, and this is how the story is being told. So I was waiting for the moment, and then I realized that my guide was also telling me, sir, look at it. There's the monk, there's the common man, and then there is the military. And I was like, are you trying to tell that all three things are coming together? And it was a flash of a moment. I turned and I clicked this image, and it came out well. Thankfully, I had a long lens. But later he said, yes, sir, it actually is significant. So these kind of small significances you need to understand, you need to find out. And of course, another beautiful shot of the palace, not the palace, the Dozong, where the administrative head is the country's administrative head. This is inside. They allow you for half an hour, so I could manage to click some nice pictures. And in Bhutan, again, you should observe culture. Here, it's architecture. They're very symmetrical and they're very, they have sharp lines. So I wanted to bring out that in my photography. So here you can see the lines are very sharp. The geometry is there. So that's how I represent. Again, another picture with those, very symmetrical, structures. And then the artifacts which are kept inside, and a shot of the outside. So you have different angles, you have different things, and you are implying a certain thing about the architecture which is symmetrical with your own compositions. These are very important in storytelling. Then Bhutan is also known for its very kind people who are very pious and religious. Here, this old lady was sitting in the Choten, which is in Thimphu, which is the capital of this country, and was praying. So representation of people and their culture is also very important. And always they wear their traditional national dress. Women, it is called Kira, and men, it is called Go. Now here is a man, but here, if you look at it, the buildings at the back were not so interesting, but I have defocused it. I have kind of used shallow depth of field, created an interesting pattern, broken all rules of composition. If you look at a portrait in class, people used to always tell you should have proper headspace, you should not have too much of headspace. But if you look at the picture, there's a lot of headspace. But I would justify this image by the pattern that has been created in the background. And the man is again shot candidly. He is in his own world and he is just looking. And a very interesting face again that I observed. Here, you look at their traditional costume, the old people trying to dabble with modern technology. And again, as I told you, it's not always the depth that you need to show in picture. You can compose it flat, but with interesting background, like the girl and the dog, if you remember that particular shot from Argentina. I love these flat compositions. Here again, a lot is being told. The story is told with the paintings on these structures. The last thing after the people of Bhutan is its religious, importance. They follow the religion so diligently. They're very pious. And this particular shot I got because of a certain conversation that I had with my friend back in India who had gone to Bhutan before. This is shot in Buddha Point. This is one of the biggest structures of Buddha in the world. And he said, there is a staircase which goes up. Do not go straight to the top in car. You stop there and walk the staircase, because you will see the head of Buddha just evolving or just coming out. And then you'll see the whole structure while you reach on top. Exactly like I said. So these are certain things you need to understand while you travel. If somebody has given you an input like this, follow it. They're trying to tell that you can come out with amazing, and he was explaining how he felt. So slowly the face evolved. And then interestingly, I have used contrast. Now this shows how important God can be, and how big the presence of God is as compared to the humans that we are. You're so small compared to him. So that's the story in this picture. And also I traveled during spring season. Now this is again creating a sense of space, creating a sense of the place. Bhutan is so beautiful during spring season. These are jacaranda flowers. All over Bhutan, you see these flowers in full bloom. And then I have again used the technique of contrast, where the monk's red dress is in contrast with, this is warm color and this is cool color, kind of, separates it. And we kind of get a sense of the climate or the weather of that particular season, or the season. I would put it as the season, give you a sense of space and the country where you live. My last and ending slide is about, story is about my true love, which is analog photography. All our classmates, we all had analog cameras. Most of us had FM10s at that time. But In 2006, 2007, slowly the digital world, took over these cameras, and these cameras vanished from the scene. But recently, in last 2 years, I've stopped shooting digital. I shoot only analog. I have got a collection of old cameras now, including a Pentax K1000 with a 50 mm f1.4 lens. This was shot as a series of pictures in a small village in Madhya Pradesh called Ranipur, and all of them shot on film and scanned later, and then made digital. So I love this format. It's the format, and my PhD is here. So I'm working with a community called the Pardis, and they basically are nomadic tribes who are also born criminal because of a draconian English Act of 1871. So I'm just capturing their stories. I will tell you the story a little later. I also shoot medium format photography, which is Yashica 635. It is a 65-year-old camera. This is the format of that. It's not a 35 mm format like a 24 by 36 mm. It is 6 by 4 centimeters. This is the film size, and this is the format. So I shot Khajuraho with that old. It's a twin lens reflex camera. You must have seen in those old Hindi films the lenses with the the two lenses are there in the camera. So that camera, and these are some of the images, and some landscapes shot on the square format from Goa. And this is how I say to be responsible. So as citizens and as a photographer, you should always be sensitive towards the communities you're shooting. So even though I travel across the globe, across India, to nook and corners of India searching for unique stories, I somehow finally got involved with this community. And this community today, even during the COVID-19 times, they're struggling because they are basically born criminals. So I'm working with this community. As part of their promotion and part of my research, I did these portrait series, again shot on Yashica 635. So I'm gonna make this into a small booklet. People who would love to get these portraits put up on their walls can buy it, and the money goes to their education. And I'm trying to train these people. They're tribals, nomadic tribes. They're excellent trackers. So if one of them can be trained to become a good wildlife photographer, that will be the success of my project. So that's the whole project that I'm working on. And these are the children of those communities who are, which is called as the Pardis. So I end my presentation by saying, stay safe and stay calm. And I'm open to questions, Edwin. Edwin?
Yes, thank you very much, Nithil, for taking us through this. In 1 hour, you took us around the world, definitely from Kerala to Bhutan and to Argentina. And I think I personally have been enlightened in a lot of different ways, right from how the efforts that you have taken to actually make it easy and understandable for us, first thing. Second, the points that you have highlighted throughout your journey of this travel photography and your documentary works. Thank you for that. We are now open to questions. For those who had previously posted questions, I request you to actually post it again so that we'll be able to share it on screen, and we will let Nithil answer those questions. So let me go with the first question. Yeah.
Based on all the places you have been to take, which place is your most favorite? I don't have personal favorites. For me, every place is unique. So if I start having favorites, then I kind of limit myself into a certain box. So for me, every time I go to a new place, it opens my eyes, it opens my mind, it opens everything in me. So every place is a favorite. I don't see any place boring in this world. The world is an amazing place. It's like a huge theater, and the people in like it's exactly words of Henry Carter. It's a huge theater with people as actors, or probably it's a canvas where you can just paint. So for me, every place is my favorite, whichever place I go.
Okay, so thank you. I'll move to the next question.
Okay, Vijayalakshmi, why is it that you are being very gender specific here? What stops you from traveling? As simple as that. I don't believe in this concept of women can't travel. I'm sorry. If you have the will, you can do it. Thank you.
Thank you. I think rightly said. They should be. I mean, there's no difference. So if you have to go, you have to go. That's it. So thank you for that answer.
And just go. For students seeking some income from photography, how would street photography help them? Okay, it's not basically street photography. You should be probably, if you really want to have a career, be a photojournalist, and you can also choose social documentary. Across the globe, there are so many uh, grants, there are so many fundings that are given to social documentary photographers. Like me, I don't shoot photojournalism. I'm not into photojournalism much. Very rarely, the only event that I showed was the event that is the Bolivia, that festival. But if you look at it, for me, everything is a community, a string of photographs. There's a series that is there, and then I add words to it to tell stories. That's social documentary, and this genre is picking up really well. There are so many grants given to photographers for short projects for which can be for 3 months, and it can even go on for 3 years. So apply for these grants. There your income comes.
Good one. So next question.
Why storytelling matters in photography? Henry Peter. What is photojournalism ethics? This is it's a big presentation in itself if you have to talk about photojournalistic ethics. But just 3 words I would say: be sensitive, be aware, and be conscious of what you shoot and what stories you're telling.
Okay. Thank you. Next one.
Vijayalakshmi, consider it what? Can you take the next question? She can probably type later what she wants to.
Moving on to the next question. Yeah.
Sumedha is faculty. I just saw her. What all basic rules one should remember for SLR camera photography and mobile photography? There are no rules. Yeah, there are rules, but I would say if you are a starter, just go, just shoot. You just shoot what you like. Then you kind of start analyzing the image and see, probably you yourself will understand what could have made the picture better. So just evolve through clicking and clicking. Just keep shooting. Your rules will automatically happen. Of course, a little bit of reading on the basic rules of composition, basic rules of, like, for example, rule of thirds is very important. The foreground, middle ground, and background, then the perspective and depth. These 4 things you should keep in mind. Apart from that, it's just you and your camera and your subject.
And Nithil, at this juncture, I remember one of the golden advices given by our lecturers. You learn the rules, and then you break. Yeah. So I think, yeah, as you start, you learn the rules and you learn it perfectly well, and then you go out of the box and break the rule, and that's where your uniqueness comes into picture. Let's move on to the next question.
That's why I had a few frames where I had broken the rules, and I wanted to tell that you can always break. There's no specific code here, and that was PC Shriram for us. He told us during a session in Viscom.
Yeah.
Harish Kumar from Loyola College. Oh wow, Loyola. My question is: explain storytelling in war photography. What are the crises faced by photographer in war photography? Harish, I have never covered a war. I'm so sorry. I have to be very blunt here. I have never been on the field while covering a war, so I really do not know what crisis they face. But it is dangerous. I know it is. But Probably you should ask this question to those 3 photographers who won the Pulitzer Award covering the entire situation in Kashmir after the lockdown was announced in August. So I'm so sorry, I will not be able to answer this question. I just have theoretical answers. I don't have experiential answers.
Okay. Yeah, this is a question from Ikang. So a little bit about Mr. Ikang. Ikang is a product design lecturer. He himself is a photographer as well. And I just want to put a few words on him about his experiment during the MCO lockdown. So he had his one room and then just a window looking into the city. With only that window, he was managed to capture the different emotions on a daily basis. And every time you see that window, it gives you a different thought. So that is a short note about Ikang. So Ikang's question is,
how
much work was edited by Photoshop?
Ikang, I'm really so excited. I would love to see your work. By the way, Edwin tells, it seems interesting because that's what I tell as there's no space that is restricted. You don't have to go to a beautiful mountain to take beautiful pictures. You can tell stories sitting in your room. And I think you have done that wonderfully. So I don't edit with Photoshop at all. One of the tools that I use is Lightroom. So all my images have been processed in Lightroom. I wouldn't say edited. It's processing, which means I have only normalized my picture to what I feel is the right color, the right contrast. I don't do anything else.
Yeah.
Shorini Banerjee, a suggestion for photography learners. Okay. If you're just starting off, I would say just go ahead. Just keep shooting whatever interests you. Then also read about what you shoot. Also research a little bit about what you shoot. And then slowly start researching and then going and shooting. So then your storytelling becomes better. Then your images reflect what you want to tell. Thank you.
Yeah. There are a lot of questions coming up, so let's be a little quick. We want to answer all of them.
I'm super quick. I'm like a bullet train. It's my dream to be professional wildlife photographer. What should Tarun? First of all, being a wildlife photographer, fantastic. It's your dream and all of that. But you have to start dreaming wildlife first. To be very humorous here. First, start dreaming about wildlife. Start learning about wildlife. Associate yourself with wildlife. Learn wildlife, and then take your camera to the wild. Then you will be a better photographer.
Yeah. Next one.
Can you share some of the ethical issues that a traveling photographer must know? Yes. Please ask the name of the person you're shooting. And at least basic courtesies like, have you had food? Where do you come from? These basic questions are very much necessary if you're shooting portraits in street photography. Please do not just point your camera at anybody and start shooting and expect them to, accept what you're doing. And please also acknowledge them if you're publishing it. Get a consent form if you have, well and good. If not, at least tell them that I'm going to publish it and get their approval. That is one of the main ethical issues that you have to, be careful about. And be sensible and be very, very, very aware of the local culture. If you're in a particular country with a different culture, learn it first. Don't go and start shooting. Recently, a case happened in Bhutan. A guy, especially from India, I'm sorry to say that, a biker went on top of a choten. Choten is a memorial to take a photograph. And he was arrested for 3 days. So don't do such things.
Okay, this is a personal question. So, which is your memorable photo shoot?
Okay, again, I think I love shooting the rural areas of India, the rural tribal culture of India. So the Pardi project, the portrait project that you saw, which was shot on films, was pretty exciting. One, because I was shooting with a 65-year-old camera. Two, I was shooting with film. Three, it was a very, very volatile, subject. Because children don't usually pose You have to make them pose, and if they have to look into the camera, they have to. But it was amazing. They were brilliant, and the outcome of that project is going to help them. So that is also very, very important. So that's one of my most memorable photo shoots.
Yes. So do you love to concentrate on historical collections? If yes, please do share the places which you went unnoticed in India. I mean, I think what
Prerna, yeah.
means, yeah.
Prerna, if you have time, you just Google my name on YouTube and get my channel. There is a film called Cookie. It is one of the more. It's my second documentary film. This by a man who has just completed his 8th class, who has a sweet shop in Bundi, a place in Rajasthan. From 1979 till date, has discovered 100 plus rock paintings. So the whole film is about him, and I've done a photo feature also about him. Completely, he's very, very down to earth. Nobody knows about him except a little bit of local people know him. But he is going to be in the Guinness Book of Records soon for identifying the maximum number of rock paintings, the oldest being 20,000 years old.
Yeah. So can you explain current photography technology like as mirrorless? What do you
current photography technology like as mirrorless? How is it possible?
Yeah.
Well, that's a big lesson I have to take on mirrorless technology. As I told, this presentation is not a technical presentation, but I will tell you, mirrorless, the only advantage of mirrorless is it's smaller in size, lighter in weight, and it's easy to capture. And of course, with Sony's latest technologies, you get amazing color and resolution. But other than that, it's just another tool. For me, it's just another tool. It's just another technology. I don't really, concentrate on that. As I told you, I'm shooting with a 65-year-old film camera. No DSLR, no mirrorless, nothing.
Okay. Yeah.
The decisive moment, it comes with experience. As I told, you should have an intuition. You should anticipate a certain action that could happen, or probably it happened and it's going to happen again. So you wait. So that's how you learn. But it comes with experience.
The next question is very interesting. The advent of smartphones, has it killed the art of photography? Your comments?
No. It's democratized photography in many ways. People everywhere are clicking pictures, but the only thing that it has killed is it has killed the art of storytelling. So we become very we are narcissist. We only shoot selfies.
True. Yeah, that's your next question. Suggest what kind of photography can become an income generating activity for rural and tribal based students?
Your own community. They are unique. If you can capture them and if you can make stories out of it, if you can publish them in international journals, you get a lot of income. Today, that's where, the world is moving backwards. I would call it forward, but we call it but these communities are very interesting. And there are a lot of them who are in the verge of extinction. If you can tell stories and capture their lifestyle, nothing like that. And as I told you, there are funds, there are grants given to you for just capturing a particular community.
Next question is from Prabhu Tony. Like in painting, we are modern art, which some of the painting and drawing rules may not apply. Is there something called modern photography where composition rules doesn't matter?
I told you, and Edwin also told, you learn the rule and then you break the rule. But here at times as a photographer, we tend to go by the rules. At times it's not possible to, follow the rules. At times you consciously don't follow, at times you cannot follow. So it's that particular moment and decision that changes it. But there's no specific style called modern photography. There's nothing called as modern photography.
Yeah. Okay. That's the next question from
Panbu Selvan. Analog photography, possibilities of developing in printed process digital era. Panbu, if you are in India, You can connect me on my social media handles. I will give you the link of a group, WhatsApp group, which has all the contacts. Chennai, Bangalore, Mumbai, Delhi. Film is coming back. Ilford is producing films. They are cheaper. It's marketed in India. Ilford is giving the printing solutions, developing solutions, everything at a very, very cheap cost. The entire developing kit is only 8,000 rupees. And there are a lot of people who are doing developing now. They've started doing developing in Chennai, Bangalore, Mumbai, Kolkata, and Delhi. And there is a museum in Delhi, in Gurgaon, which has a processing unit. In Mumbai, there are 3, 4 places. Pune also has, Bangalore also has. Individuals in their homes, they do it and they scan it. It's coming back. Film is back. Mashnika Ashok Kumar. Sir, I have a question. While looking into a photograph, people have different perspectives. How could a photographer make them understand his views? See, in my photography, I give them the message with my composition, but the whole story I don't want to tell. Probably that's left to the viewer to understand what they want to understand. So I don't really it doesn't really matter to me. It's left to the viewer's perspective. But if I'm telling a specific story about a specific community, the photograph series will be accompanied with captions. So you complement it with words.
Okay. Let me scroll through many more questions. Are there? Okay, interesting. What makes you motivated to keep making storytelling photography?
Daniel, I always tell people who introduce me as a photographer and a filmmaker, please first tell that I'm a storyteller. So that's what I believe in. I believe in telling stories. I just use photography as a tool. So the motivation is I need to keep telling stories. Stories that have not been told. That's the most important thing. Not about stories that have been told repeatedly. I want to explore and find out stories that have not been told. I haven't even explored a wee bit of India. There's so much across, so much in your neighborhood you can just explore. So that keeps me motivating.
Okay, so this one, Saktivel from Tirupur. Explain travel photography. Which camera do you prefer and why?
Start with a very basic camera. You don't have to get anything advanced. If you have the budget for buying a DSLR, go for a T3 or a T4i, which is basically, I think, it's called now 750, Canon 750 or Nikon 5200. Any basic DSLR is enough. If you have the budget, if you don't, a normal point and shoot camera is also fine. Even if nothing is there, your mobile phone is fine. You still learn.
Thank you very much, Nithil. I think yeah, we have tried to answer all the questions here. There's one last question that we might take. Yeah, so
what is the thing keep do a photography until now? What? I'm sorry, Hui, I don't understand the question.
Okay, I think I get what you want to say. I think what has kept you going passionately into photography now and to the future, how do you see that? So I think that's a question. So how what keeps you moving into and doing more photography now and in the future? That's a question.
See, I'm in academics, and the most important thing that I feel about being a teacher is that I have to reinvent and invent, research, and I have to keep on going unless and until I reinvent. I reinvent myself. I will not be able to give to my students. So for me, that's the thing that keeps me going. Unless and until I learn, I cannot make other people learn. So I don't try to suffocate myself and stagnate myself. Photography keeps me gives me these reinventions, and I keep on reinventing myself every time I take my camera. So that's about it.
Okay, I think that was the last question for the day. I think thank you again, Nithil, for being patient.
Irvin is definitely good stories to hear. Keep going.
Yeah, so there's lots of positive comments that are coming up. So I want to share a few on the screen. So there you go, one. And then I want to show a few more.
That's okay. If you are like hard pressed for time, I'm fine with
So,
it.
yeah, so yeah, maybe we will move on to the conclusion part of it. So let me share my screen with the team here.
Yeah?
Yeah, so that's Nithil Dennis for you. You can get in touch with him through his social media handles. So he's very active in FB and Instagram. I'm not able to share the link here, but definitely you Google his name, you'll be able to get in touch with Nithil. So thank you again, Nithil, for this wonderful session. Very, very positive comments and vibes. I'm sure that a few would have gained the energy to actually go and start. Let me do it again. Let me start from again for travel photography. So I'm sure about that. Really, really sure about that. On that note, let me. So that's Nithil. Question answer. We're done with it. On the feedback sheet, input.
Can I just 1 minute?
Yeah.
Thank you, Edwin. Thank you, APU, and also Leo and Kumaraguru. It was fun. I hope you enjoyed it, and you can definitely connect with me on social media. I will be able to tell more and probably share more things. Thank you so much, all of you.
Thank you, Nithil. What you see on your screens now is the next Friday session for you. We have specifically arranged this for enthusiasts who are into AR and VR technology. So we have bringing you Dr. Andrew Yu, Chief Technology Officer, Ministry XR. So from Singapore, he is happy to share his experience, and he wants to share how AR and VR is going to revolutionize. It's going to it's going to change and make us a better, give us a better new normal. So during this time of pandemic, so I would be sending you the registration link. This is going to be a very, very interesting session for you. We have organized for next week. So thank you very much for being here. This is Edwin from Asia Pacific University. And Nithil, your last words for the session?
As I said, stay safe, stay calm. This will also pass. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Again,
And all the best for your sessions, future sessions.
Thank you so much, Nithil. The feedback form link has been shared. Please ensure that you fill in the feedback form. When you fill in the feedback form, you become eligible to claim for your e-certificate. And we would need at least 3 working days to send in the certificate. Again, thank you very much, all of you, for joining us today on this Friday evening. See you next Friday. Have a wonderful day and a safe life. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye-bye.